Hi everyone, welcome to the Intro to Power BI workshop. My name is Bhakti Patel and
My name is Sean.
so today we'll be covering the basics of Power BI and have you making reports before you know it. So Power BI is a tool that lets you interactively explore data to gain insights, and it enables you to effectively report insights through easy to use customizable visualizations. So today we'll be using Power BI Desktop to create a report and analyze the data. And this is like the free version of Power BI. So I'm just going to open up the Power BI Desktop app.
All right, so in this workshop, we'll be using data from a fictional company called Adventure Trading, which is a wholesale goods supplier. So in the first half of the workshop, I'll give you a quick walkthrough of the Power BI interface and show you how to use some basic features. And then in the second half, Sean will build a report using what we've learned in the first half. All right, so let's get started with creating our dashboard. So first we need data. So we'll click on the Get Data button. And then we want to import Excel. So I'll select the Excel option here. Now let's open the Adventure Trading file. And this file contains all the sales transactions, customer information, employee information, and more at Adventure Trading. So we're just going to check these boxes and click on Load. So while we're waiting for the data to load, I'll talk a little bit about the interface. So the canvas area here in the middle is where all the visualizations are created. In the filter section here, you can filter your data visualizations. In the visualization section, you can add, change, or customize them. And in the field section here, you will see your available data sets. So all the data sets that are loading will show up here. So you can just drag these onto the canvas and then use the visualizations and filter section to create and modify your data visualizations. All right, so now that we've loaded the data, let's start by clicking on the ADV sale drop-down arrow. And we'll select a field called total including tax. So Power BI automatically creates a column chart for us. And the field we selected was recognized as a numerical value and automatically added to the values section here. Now on the left-hand side, there are three icons which represent the three different views: report, data, and model. So right now we're on the report view, which is also the default view, which is where we create our visuals and reports. In the data view, you can see the raw data which is used in our report. So if we click on ADV sale again, here we can see that we have a few columns referring to keys. So for instance, let's see, there's this column called invoice date key. Then there's another one called salesperson key. Now let's take a look at a new table called ADV employee. So ADV employee holds more information about the salesperson for each of the transactions, and we're going to connect it to our ADV sales table to use it. So again, we have several columns referring to keys, including the employee key, which we're going to connect to our salesperson key. Now let's go to the model view and create a relationship between the data sets. So here in the model view, we can see and manage the relationships between the data we've loaded. All right, so let's see. So we're going to connect the salesperson key to the employee key. And we can do that by dragging the salesperson key to employee key right here. And now you can see that Power BI is aware that there's a relationship between the two different data sets that we've loaded. Now let's go back to the report view and build our visuals. Now, let's see, let's add employee to our graph. So Power BI automatically adds the employee text field to access here. And I'm just going to make this graph a little bigger for readability. So our column chart now shows the sales each salesperson has generated rather than just the total sales, which is much more interesting. And we can hover over the bar graph to get the values of the bars. All right, now let's add a card visualization. We can do that by clicking on card here. And I'll just drag it up here. And we're going to add the same total including tax. All right, let's resize this a little. And now we see the total of all the bars shown in here. So if I click on Jack Potter's bar, for example, the card shows me his value. And I can do the same for others. And this is very interactive. And then I can unselect by clicking a blank area within the bar graph. I can also play around with other visualizations by selecting my graph and trying out different types of visuals, such as a donut chart or a tree map. All right, so now I'm going to change it back to the column chart, and we're going to add additional fields to do a comparison. Okay, so let's go back to ADV sale and add profit. So we can compare it with the total including tax field. So now you can see that we have two bars next to each other and a legend above. And now we have the total including the tax and profit. And I think it would be really interesting to add another metric to this graph. So let's add the location. So let's go to the data view and let's see if we have something for location and ADV sale. So in the ADV sales table, we can see that there is a column called city key. So there's actually another table called ADV city that holds more information on this key. So here we can see it's what we're looking for because it contains information about the location of the sale, including the city, state, country, continent, sales territory, region, subregion, and more. So now I'm going to show you how to add a sales territory slicer to make this more interactive. So we're going to go back to the report view, and then we're going to select the slicer icon, which is right here. And let's use the sales territory field, which is an ADV city. So basically, a slicer allows you to filter by region. So if we click on Great Lakes, for example, we can see that there's more information on the employee related to Great Lakes, and then same for other regions. You can view more information about the employees related to the specific region. Now, finally, let's try out the table. So I'm just going to move these here. All right, so let's click on the table icon right here, and let's select a number of relevant fields to go into it. So from ADV sale, we have the employee invoice date key. Let's do the tax rate. Oops, it didn't select. Okay. So tax rate, I kind of want it to be after the invoice date key. So we're going to reselect it. And then let's include the total, including tax, profit, and then let's add some location metrics. So from ADV city, we'll choose city and state province. All right, perfect. So our table also shows us a total column, total value row. All right, so now let's just rearrange this to make this look a little nicer. So put the table here. I'll add this here to make this a little smaller. Make the table a little smaller too. Let's stretch this out a bit for readability. Perfect. Now we can also add a title. So we'll use text box to add the title, and let's call it Adventure Trading Employees Sales Data. And we can increase the font size to 28 so it's a clear title, and bold it. And yeah, finally, we should rename the page tab so that it matches our title. And there we go, our first report is done. Now let's do another example of field aggregation. So let's add a new page. And so for this example, let's determine how much was the cheapest sale made to Tailspin Toys. So let's make a quick visual. So we'll use the ADV customer table, and let's select buying group. And from ADV sale, we're going to select the total including tax. And this time we'll use a clustered chart. Now, is there a relationship between the buying group and total sale including tax? Well, we can't tell right now because our graph is showing us the sum value of all the sales, which is in millions of dollars. So we're seeing the sum because Power BI automatically sums numerical fields in a visual. So if we go to value and total including tax, we can change this aggregation from sum to minimum. And now we can see that in all the transaction records for Tailspin Toys, the cheapest transaction was 5.52. And there are a lot of other possibilities as well. So let me just click on this again. So here we could take the count of sales for each buying group. We can also take the average or any of the other aggregation functions listed here. And so here, basically, it's really important that you're always aware which aggregation is being used on your visual. Now let's do another quick example. So let's say we want to find the average credit card limit of adventure trading. So how can we do that? So let's start by looking at the ADV customer table. So we'll create a card visual. I'll just drag it up here. So we'll create the card visual with the value credit limit. Well, this is unexpected. So why do we see a question mark and a minus sign here? So there's something wrong with the credit limit data. So we'll have to use the Power Query editor to see what's wrong. And we can do that by selecting transform data here. And ADV customer. All right, so let's find our credit limit column. Okay, so here we see that the credit limit column has question marks in front of every value, which is probably a processing error. So to fix it, let's select the credit limit column. Then we can use replace values in transform to search for all the question marks and replace them with blanks. And we'll do the same for this negative sign here. And we'll just replace it with a blank. So there we go, that's cleaned up. Now we see that the data type is text here, but we actually want decimal. So let's go ahead and change that by clicking on the decimal number. And now let's close and apply our changes to save them. All right, perfect. So now we can find the average credit card limit of adventure trading by changing this field from minimum to average of credit limit. And the average value we get is 99.53K. Now let's do one last example. And this time we'll make a geographic visual. So let's see, in the ADV city table, we have several columns representing geographic areas, and we can put these in a data category like country, city, continent, which allows us to specify what type of geographic data the column contains. So for instance, here we can use city for location, and let's choose quantity as our size from ADV sale. So now the circles on the map are proportional to the quantity of items sold in each location. So here we can see that city was automatically added to location over in the visualizations pane, and quantity was added to size. And we can also add sales territory to like see the different regions that the sales are coming from. All right, so now I'll pass it off to Sean, who's going to build a report using what we've learned in the first half of the workshop.
So Bhakti went over how to transform and clean data after importing it from an Excel file, in this case, into Power BI, and essentially how to clean it so that we can visualize the right values. And she went over a few ways to visualize the data as well. I'm essentially going to build off of what Bhakti did and show you a couple more visualizations that you can make in Power BI, as well as how to make a really nice looking dashboard to show anybody from your coworkers to your bosses, anybody who requires such dashboards. I'm going to share my screen real quick. Okay, so now that we've reopened the Power BI sheet, so just to show everyone, we have all of the tables that show up on the right. In the table view, we can see all the tables over here with all of their corresponding values, as well as the relationships and how all the keys that are in city, customer, stock item, and employee all link to sale, which is the central data source from which we'll be pulling our data of sales and profit and quantity, as we will see. So in making, let's go to this one, in making a dashboard, the first thing that I want to do is insert a title. And this will be a very generic title since there will be a wide array of visuals that I'll be showing you. So let me make the title Adventure Trading Profit Metrics. Move it all the way across the top. Make it bold. There we go. So that'll be the title, very basic. And now the next thing I want to do is make a donut chart that shows profits by sales territory. Now this means Southeast, Mideast, Southwest Plains, all that kind of stuff, all the different sales territories within North America. In order to do that, I'm going to open up ADV Sale and ADV City to make this a little bit wider so we can see. So I will select sales territory as well as profit. One which is a quantitative field, the profit, and one a qualitative field. So by default, it shows us a map, but we want a donut chart. So we're going to go under visualizations and select donut. It takes some time to load, but yeah, essentially what we get is this. We have a legend of all the different sales territories, as well as how much in profits, as well as the percentage contribution of the total that each sales territory has. And we see that the highest contribution comes from the Southeast with a profit of just under $19 million, which is roughly 22% of the total. I want to put this visualization right at the top left. You're making it a little smaller to accommodate for some of the other visualizations. The next visualization I want to make is a simple table that shows city and profit per city. So I'm going to deselect the first visualization, then in fields, pick city and profit once again. If it works, there we go, yeah. And then under visualizations, we're just going to select table. And it becomes a simple table. Let's adjust the width. And we're just going to put it right underneath the title, right next to profit by sales territory. And there's too many cities here. I don't want so many cities on the dashboard because it can be a lot to just go through all of them. So what I want to do is select a top number, maybe let's say top 10 or top 15 of cities by profit. So we're going to sort by profit. And I also don't want the bar to be this big. So I just only want the top ones to show. So we're going to go under filters, and we're going to go under the dimension or qualitative filter of city. Select the drop down. Right now it's set to basic filtering, which is just by profit or the quantitative measure of profit. We're going to select the drop down and make it top N. Now this allows us to only see a top number, a specified top number of cities by profit. So I'm just going to go with a simple top 15. Okay, now in order to sort by profit by the top 15 cities, we're going to drag profit to by value so that the cities are sorted by the value of the quantitative measure of profit. And now we're going to drop that in by value. We click apply filter. And now once that's picked, the sidebar is a lot shorter because only the top 15 cities are selected here. And if we want to go even further and create a slicer, like what Bhakti had previously mentioned, we can also add a slicer to sort the profit values of not just the table, but also the donut chart. So what we can do is deselect all the visualizations and select the dashboard. And I just want a slicer for profit. So I'm just going to select profit. Sorry, wrong one. Just going to select profit here. And I'm going to make a slicer, which is this icon right here. And the slicer is made, they make it automatically for you. It has the bottom and the topmost values of potential profit. So if you just drag the slicers, both visualizations now update. So you'll see the profit range given the slicer values, as well as the donut chart change as well. So that's another really great feature of Power BI, the fact that one slicer or one thing that you want to filter automatically filters all the other visualizations in a dashboard. And that's something to keep in mind because Tableau actually requires you to select the filter option, whereas Power BI automatically does it, making it a very intuitive tool. Okay. I'll make it a little smaller to get rid of the profit header. And now we can make our next visualization, which is a simple scatter plot. So I want to show the relationship between profit and quantity by sales territory via a scatter plot. So first, we're going to select the two quantitative measures of profit and quantity. It automatically shows up as a bar graph, but we're going to want to make it a scatter plot, which is right here. There's only one value here. But essentially, how you convert this into showing all of the different sales territories is by dragging sales territory into details. So we're going to go up to sales territory and drag it to details. And now all of a sudden, you have all of the sales territories pop up in the scatter plot. I'm going to make it fit just a little bit better so that it appears next to these visualizations. Now it looks a lot nicer. It's very linear as well. Now, one way to illustrate a linear relationship is through a trend line. And we can do this by going to the analytics pane under visualizations. So all we have to do is click on the analytics magnifying glass looking thing right there. Select trend line and then press add. And it automatically adds a trend line right there that'll help you visualize the relationship between profit and quantity. I can make it a little nicer, making it a little more transparent. The color seems fine, and I'll make it dotted since that's how most regression lines tend to be. So we already have 3 visualizations in 3 different formats. The next one I want to illustrate is a line chart, which will help us explain data pertaining to this entire data set. So I want to show profit by year. More specifically, I want to show profit by delivery date, because there's 2 dates under the sale key. There's delivery date, and then there's invoice date. So we want to go with delivery date. So let's select delivery date and profit. Initially, it'll just show the table, and we're going to convert it into a line chart. makes a pretty nice one right here. We're going to fit it so it fits nicely into the dashboard. I'll draw it a little bit wider to make the trend seen. So right now we have 4 distinct data points that can be drilled down into quarters, but as of now, we're only interested in seeing the profit per year. And so if you hover over, you'll be able to see the profit in any given year as well. Now, the really cool thing about a line chart is that it's one of the few visualizations through which you can utilize the explain data option. So all you have to do is, let's say I want to see why the number of profits decreased so significantly between the years 2015 and 2016. So all I have to do is hover over the 2016 dot, which shows decreased profits, right-click on it, select Analyze, and then explain the decrease. It automatically has the explain the increase or decrease based on whether or not the data went down or up. And now Power BI essentially analyzes and ranks its findings as to why the profits decreased per year. Some of this data might not make much sense because it shows a plethora of fields that only have keys as opposed to actual values. But then there are significant charts here that show, let's say over here, by year and state province. So over here, essentially they're telling you that Texas, Pennsylvania, and California had the largest decrease amongst the provinces. And then there were relative contributions made by Washington, New York, and Maine as well that had the greatest amount of change, and that significantly explained the dip in profits. So it drills down the data for you, and it also has it in a concise sentence, essentially, for you to be able to see why data changed the way that it did. There's a bunch of different ones over here as well. Over here, it's showing the employee data as to which employees dipped the greatest in total profits from 2015 to 2016. So over here, you'll be able to see from the employees that are listed, Hudson had the greatest drop-off of losing $1 million in profits compared to the other 4 individuals. So this is a really cool feature of Power BI. And for other data sets, you'll be able to right-click on a line chart or any other given chart and be able to essentially explain why there was an increase or decrease in any particular quantitative data. That's a really cool feature of Power BI that's unique to this platform. Now, the last visualization I want to include for the bottom right portion of this dashboard is a waterfall chart. And a waterfall chart is essentially what we just saw in the explain the data sets. It explains the proportion of the total of any dimension that we want to see. So how much of, let's say, from the previous example, a decrease in profits was caused by different sales provinces or different employees. So in order to do this, I want to show the quantities by city. So sales quantities by city. I'm going to select quantity and city. And then I'm going to select the waterfall option right over here. The first column, third row. And over here, you can see there are hundreds of different cities. So we're essentially going to do the same thing and just select, in this case, the top 7. I'm going to go up to city, change basic filtering to top N. We're going to pick top 7 this time. And the value that we're going to select is by quantity. I'm going to click apply filter one more time. Now it looks a lot nicer because we're only taking into account the top 7 cities when we're filtering by quantity. And so it has a list of cities here, the top 7 cities that contributed to the greatest quantity of sales orders from adventure trading. So we have a lot of information on this dashboard already. And this is a really good start because you don't want to overwhelm the person you're pitching to. So finally, once we have one of our dashboards made, the last thing I want to take a look at is something called key influencers. And essentially, key influencers are different fields that allow you to analyze increasing or decreasing patterns within your data. And the best thing about Power BI is that it does this analysis for you once you've selected the two fields you want to compare. So let's say I want to compare quantity and total revenues, including tax. And I want to see how quantity can either cause total revenues to increase or decrease after tax has been included. So I'm going to first select what I want to explain. And I will then select quantity, which is essentially the independent variable in what I want to find. So once I've selected these two, I'm going to go to the key influencers visualization. Essentially, at first it'll show you that there's no influencers found. All you have to do is click the drop down for your analyze field and go to don't summarize. And now it has very in-depth KPIs with regards to in which instances the quantity can either increase or decrease your total, including tax, otherwise known as revenues, including tax. So if the quantity is within these two values, the total revenues increase. If we just go to the drop down, now these three boxes, or these three bins essentially decrease. Now, if I only want to see a chart of the ones that cause it to significantly decrease, it'll keep the average line constant while also showing the statistically significant bins. And then it also has a top segments tab as well, where it shows the different segments as well as how many, the sample size, or in this case, population count of each segment. We can zoom in on what these segments actually are. So the second segment, for example, is greater than 3 and less than or equal to 36 in terms of quantity of product. And it shows you how significantly this segment contributes to the overall quantity that causes revenues to be low. And you can do the same thing for high. There's only one segment here, since there's one segment that does cause revenues to increase, and that is greater than 36 or less than or equal to 120. And you can see how the revenues outpace the overall revenue number at the bottom over here. There's a lot of different applications for key influencers, but this is one of the more intuitive ones, and something that Power BI essentially guides you through. Now, the last thing I want to go over is stylizing your data to make it look more sleek, or just a little bit better. So one thing I want to do is change all of the backgrounds for all of these visualizations, including the title, to black, while making all of the chart titles, as well as the other descriptive information, white. So let's do it for the donut chart in the top left. All we have to do is go to the format pane. Let's change the title first. We'll make the font color white while making the background black. Now the overall background will make black. Data colors. And the details will also make white. And now we'll go over to the legend, and we'll make the sales territory legend white as well, so we'll be able to see it. And now we essentially have a black background with all the descriptive information, the legend, and the title all white. Now this may take some time to do on all of the visualizations, so I have it done on another dashboard here. So once you make all of your visualizations backgrounds black and words white, you will essentially end up with something like this. Now, in my opinion, this looks a little sleeker, and you can customize this in any way that you want using the format pane, either for the entire dashboard or for each individual worksheet. So these were some of the ways that we made Power BI worksheets as well as dashboards. Initially, Bhakti started off importing, transforming, and querying data to clean it and make it better for us to analyze. And then I went ahead and, after Bhakti made some initial visualizations, I made a few more and then put them all together into a dashboard, as well as using some more intuitive features of Power BI, such as key influencers and explaining data increases or decreases. We hope you found this workshop really helpful, and we hope that you use Power BI going forward in order to create data visualizations and dashboards of your own.